Yo, what's up, guys? Absolutely crazy market over the past few days. We had Bitcoin dipping on the initial Israel-Iran news. Then we had a massive pump, so the market seemingly shrugged off everything like it doesn't care. But we have the perfect person joining us today on the show, Paradise, who's an expert trader who you guys are probably familiar with on the channel by now, who's going to run us through the scenarios at the moment. And there's a lot to talk about. We're talking pre-stream here about the potential options on Bitcoin, on a bunch of altcoins, and it's absolutely insane. There's a lot to unpack. It's a very, very pivotal point for market, so I think this will be a really important video for you guys to watch. But Paradise, how's it going, bro?
Yeah, good. Thanks, man. Just glued in, watching what happens and trying to avoid headline risk.
Yeah, I mean, could you explain actually before we even get into the charts, like what is headline risk? Because this is a big thing at the moment.
Oh, simply, if you're in a position, it can be compromised very quickly if negative sentiment comes through, like news headlines and whatnot. We saw the escalation news the other day, and that gave us quite a big sell-off, but it was absorbed quite well. This big bottom wick here. Actually zoom in on that a bit. This bottom wick here, and then subsequently throughout the weekend, we arguably had worse headlines come through, like updates on the escalation, but they didn't move price nearly as much. So that's like an indication of absorption of it.
This is crazy, bro. Look at this. Every hour there's something, and this typically happens during big geopolitical events. But yeah, Iran's going to strike back. They're working on a resolution. They're not working on a resolution. It's escalating. Trump, people should leave immediately. Chinese embassy, like all this stuff happening every hour. And but it's interesting because despite all of this uncertainty in the markets, Bitcoin and even alts to an extent, because they largely mirror Bitcoin, has like shrugged this off like it's nothing. I mean, we had that initial dip late last week to sweep that like 103, 102K region. But since then, we've just been grinding higher.
Yeah, I think I've got this drawn out at the moment as a range, but like the higher time frame level to watch was the one we've been discussing for a few weeks on stream together. And it's just this 106 level. So it was daily resistance, daily resistance. Then we're kind of just chopping back and forth. So it's kind of like a bull bear pivot. Well, I'm noticing a lot of people sort of reference the same at the moment. Above is bullish, below is bearish, but you can see we're not really respecting the level at all. It's like pure chop between it. So I'm kind of ignoring the level for now.
I
I'm
kind
more
of think that's
focusing.
rubbish.
Yeah.
Now, I really like you. If you guys watched my stream last week, I actually talked about this level on my chart. It looks a little bit different to yours, but pretty much the same line that I've drawn. I'm just not as
Yeah, it's pretty standard.
gifted at drawing lines as you. But this level here, I thought we'd respect it a little bit more because this has been like a pivot point, right? Like in the mid range. So I thought we were coming up for a potential bearish retest. So I was like a very wary. Like, why would you position here below the 4-hour noodle? Like, lower high potentially. But then we just shot straight through. We've wicked back down. But like the more we chop, as you just mentioned, the more we chop through this zone, the less confidence I have that it's like an actual tradable zone. I mean, for me, the way I'm treating mid range right now is just rough risk on versus risk off. So if we're above, I'm roughly looking for altcoin low time frame setups. If we're below, I'm roughly looking for potential continuation lower. But that's pretty much the extent of attention that I'm paying to this right now, because as you said, so much headline risk is just moving price in either direction. So people are getting chopped out on either sides. We've seen some of the biggest liquidations in the past week that we've seen in over a year on Bitcoin. I'll get up the data in a second. It's billions of dollars on Bitcoin, Ethereum, because people are just getting chopped like either side of the coin right now.
Yeah, I think people trading low time frames are getting chopped a lot. It's kind of a difficult one because arguably high time frame, you're effectively longing into resistance up here, like just below it. I've got this diagonal, which we could potentially test again. We've got this range high with this daily supply level. So it's not really a place to trade on high time frame, but arguably it'll open new swing positions. But then on low time frame, like just because of how much these headlines are moving the market, your really nice looking position can be stopped out quite quickly if you just get a whipsaw based on every tweet come through. And like you said, those tweets are just coming through every hour. So really difficult to sort of do anything. The way I'm playing it right now is I'm zooming out and looking at high time frame levels where I'd like to do business if we get there. Obviously, we get a break above this diagonal, get a break above all-time high above this supply level up here. I'll be far more risk on. And conversely, if we effectively reject here again, looking for this range low to hold again. If we lose that, the next, people won't want to hear it, but got a big gap to fill down here. We've got a high volume node loading up, lining up with this 1 day demand down here at the range EQ. That's like 97 to 93K. So like, let's just say 97 the top of it. That's kind of where I'd be more eager to position more heavily into spot and swing positions. But what we've got currently, I like to flip the charts and invert them when I'm doing analysis of BTC, because BTC is one of those. Yeah, BTC is one of those assets every single trader out there has stared at. Like for a long time, this was hard for me to backtest on BTC because I pretty much know every move. You can just look at the date down the bottom, what's transpired over the past 2 years. But this right now, like if I was looking at this effectively, we created a demand, we shot away from it, we swept to key high, we came back down, we tested the demand again. Obviously, it's supply because we're inverted. Now, I would have liked to have seen this retest effectively carry down to another POI effectively down here, which would have been a more healthy move. But we sort of just bounced and then we're just stuck in between these two levels here. We've not really made any shifts structurally yet. That's why it's hard for me to position anywhere in here. Low time frame, you can find plenty of levels to work with, but I just think
go back to the inverted chart again. I want to make a comment on something. So you're potentially looking at that POI. So you're saying this could be like a bottoming formation if this was a normal chart. But I made the comment before that, like, what if this is a lower high? Like if you look at that wick coming underneath that red line, potentially looking at a triple bottom here. What do you think about that as a scenario?
There are arguments for both. I was almost looking at this before as compression into diagonal, compression into resistance, and that's like a bullish signal. Especially when we go to like the money noodle on the daily. We've respected it on the bounce here, respected it again on the headline news, absorption straight into it, and we've just been coasting along top of it now. So effectively, if you compression,
this is going to lead to a big move. It has to. Just which way?
That's it. I mean, if I had to gun to my head and I had to say one I'm more keen on, I'd probably say upside. Just because one of my textbook setups is grinding along the noodle, along the trend and compressing between a diagonal. I think when I've backtested like 8 out of 10 times, you get resolution to the upside. But it's just a difficult thing also to long into resistance, the amount of like FUD and stuff we got going on. Ergo, it's also being absorbed quite well. So it's a difficult decision. VWAP too. Like we are coasting along the value area high of the yearly. We are coasting along the value area high of the quarterly. Looks good from that perspective as well. So yeah, gun to my head, I'd say upside. And yeah, I mean, I was looking at this before as well. So I got so many conflicting signals. This was a nice low, right?
Yeah.
It's a nice sweep of a low before pushing up. We actually go to a line chart, which is what you should be drawing market structure on. Here's our low. Effectively, we close below it. And effectively, this is a lower high retest into supply, into the range high, which in anyone's book is a bearish signal, something you'd look to short. The only thing that throws me off here is the fact that we've maybe not made a lower low, we're effectively making a higher low. So kind of what I said before, we're just stuck in between these 2 points here. Sort of an internal rotation style thing going on. So for me, I think I'd be more comfortable once we actually get above this level. And I mean like acceptance above that level, because if you actually look at this, what it is, we've got equal highs up here. Let's make it a different color. Equal highs up here, which could be a nice sweep before rejecting back down. So one scenario I actually had in mind, let's clear this up for a sec, was effectively coming in, running those, and we start closing back inside the range and giving a bearish back test to the range high. That would potentially be a short, probably targeting down at this low here at like 100, maybe even this 102K low. Probably just be looking at those two for targets. And then if we really sell off, I'd be looking down at that big one we talked about at like 97.
I'm going to make a comment here. I think people, like, if you go on, don't use X as your pulse checker right now, because every single time we've pushed into that resistance zone at 110K, everyone gets crazy bullish. And it's happened like 100%. The last few times. So I have PTSD, and I was saying to you before the show, like I'm finding it hard to be a mega bull right now. And I don't know if I am doing something wrong, because everyone else on my feed is. Like Alex Becker's bull posting again, a bunch of other big accounts like Mac bull posting again, Rookie XBT always bull posting, Kaleo. I mean, there are obviously a lot of other big creators like and some flood, obviously very bullish. They're in big hyper liquid positions. Obviously, that making a bunch of money is going to make you a bit euphoric. But what I'm trying to say is all these big accounts, extremely, extremely, extremely bullish whenever we go into resistance. But I do find it hard just as like, I guess a more conservative trader. Like people might think I'm a degen, which I definitely am with alts, but I'm also quite conservative. I think people that know me and actually have traded with me know I'm actually a bit more risk averse than maybe what some people think in terms of my actions in like what I actually trade in the market. And right now I'm just finding it hard to share that sentiment. And I think agreeing with you, above 110K, like if we get some sort of acceptance above there, I would be very, very receptive to adding to my positions, because then I have like some sort of defined level that I can use to invalidate. The problem is right now is if I open up new altcoin positions right at this second, I don't know where I'm invalidating. Like technically on Bitcoin, it's 92K. So that I'm going to get absolutely wiped with a smidge of leverage. And even on spot, I'm going to lose 20, 30% if we go down there. Yes, I could invalidate. I could take something a bit tighter. Like if you want to look at my chart, I could potentially long altcoins at mid-range and invalidate below, but we've been chopping. So I don't really trust this level that much anymore. Or you could argue 100K is a logical invalidation point. But on Bitcoin, if you look at the current level to the range low, it's 5%. If Bitcoin goes down 5%, alts are 10 to 15% down in that case. So I'm going to get absolutely smoked with 2x, 3x leverage, maybe spot a little bit less. But basically what I'm trying to say is I don't necessarily get the logic between the logic about piling up into risk on positions right now, heading into resistance. I'm kind of looking for a sweep. 100K again would probably be the level where I start adding, with a potential sweep of that 96-ish K level that you've pointed out as a secondary bid zone on stuff I like and I want to hold longer term, because I'm not really thinking shorter term here apart from my trading. In terms of investing, I'm looking longer term. So for that, I want to sweep, or conversely, a break and a hold above 110, and then that would be another signal for me to potentially add spot. But if that happens sooner, then that kind of shifts the cycle more to the left. Sorry, I'm ranting here. People have also come for you, but I'll just get my opinions out before my show later. That if we do rally sooner and go to 115, 120, 125, that shifts the cycle more to the left. Whereas my theory has always been like we're going to have that bigger run later in the year. So in that case, I would in some way be FOMOing into alts under the presumption that we have maybe a slightly earlier peak, which in a way I don't want. So I think the healthier, like in terms of being able to adequately position and maximize the cycle. So in a way, I would prefer another sweep to the downside, and maybe we don't get it, and that's and that's just too bad. But in terms of my preference, a lot of people don't like prices going down. I'm the opposite. I would very much like either 100 or 96, because that would be those would be two levels that I can bid some quality stuff that I've missed. We'll talk about some alts later. I know you've got some nice setups at the moment we can look at, but yeah, I would look to add some alts to my portfolio there, and then longer term, like looking towards the end of the year, my thesis would still be intact, and then I would probably maximize those trades because I can get a better cost basis on those trades versus buying at these current levels. But anyway, that's kind of my rant over my current feelings on the market. Yeah.
No, they were good words. I agree with a lot of that. I mean, even just, your standard baby pips first page advice is like you're longing into resistance here. It's generally not good. You want to long support, sell resistance. Obviously, there's many caveats and nuances to that. But positioning heavily into resistance is a difficult one. Even your standard breakout trader is not going to be positioning heavily in lieu of a breakout, because that's been, smacked down a few times on the attempt so far. People are looking for confirmation. If we get confirmation, it probably teleports quite fast.
Can I ask you a question? Yeah, this is exactly what I want to ask. So then there'll be some people thinking, cool, all right, Mars, that your plan makes total sense if we get a dip. But what if we don't? What if we just teleport? Because Bitcoin has been not that forgiving in terms of dips. It's given you a few. 75 was my last big ad zone, and then 100K. Again, I got some fills, but not all, because it was a very quick bounce. But people will be wondering, what if we just teleport to 120 in like a day? Like what do you do in that scenario? Is that something you should be worried about if you're not fully exposed to the market?
Yeah, I mean, this is a daily chart. It needs to break this high up here. You just need to look for like entry refinement. So if we get a very bullish impulse up here, and then we start sort of flagging on lower time frame, probably drew that a bit overextended. We start flagging here in like the 1 hour, maybe the 4 hour, depends on what you trade. And you start seeing like constructive price action. So high highs, high lows, good market structure. That's kind of where you can start scaling into things. If you look for like confirmation on the daily, maybe price comes up here and does like a shallow pullback, rally-based rally, like small consolidation type thing before going up. I think that's what freezes a lot of people out. Even this move here, people were waiting for a pullback and it was just doing upwards consolidation. So this is just that rally-based rally thing I was going about in stream. You get a push-up consolidation, kind of like pit stops in a race. If you got to refuel or get new tires or whatever, just doesn't go up in a straight line. So that's my plan. If we get up there, I'll be on the hourly and just looking for like bullish market structure breaks and start scaling into alts that look to be performing a similar pattern. But while we talked about
the thing, right? Like if Bitcoin does go to 100, this is my counter argument to myself. If someone asks me this question, if Bitcoin does go to 120 overnight, I would not be that upset, because what that does is that flicks the market into risk on, and typically price discovery can last for a matter of months, weeks to months. So that gives you weeks to months of catching altcoin laggards. It'll get a lot of mainstream media attention. A lot of retail will come back to try and chase the pump, and what this will do is it'll create like a small window of PVE, which we've seen in past environments, where you can just trade like pretty simple patterns as you've discussed in terms of continuation, and actually like make a lot of money on alt. So my counter argument would be, okay, maybe you won't maximize your spot holdings if you weren't positioned now and we go to 120 instantly, but what you would be able to do is capitalize on, as long as the rally sustains for a matter of weeks, which it should, you'll be able to capitalize on lots of low time frame opportunities, catch-up trades, on-chain trading. And like just the other week, and just like over the past few weeks, I've hit, I don't really talk about a lot of the small caps because I just think it's too risky, to be honest. But I've hit some like very good on-chain trades, like 5x's, 10x's, with small size, and that's in like a pretty rubbish environment. Like, and I can imagine that becomes abundant once Bitcoin's at 100k, 120k. So that's what gives me confidence that, okay, maybe I don't need to fully position here into resistance. I can kind of just sit on my hands a bit. I've got my long-term spot. That's fine. I'll leave that. I'll if we get another dip, I'll add to my longer-term spot. But in the shorter term, I'll just pick off opportunities as they come if the market goes more risk on.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. And the thing too, like if BTC breaks above this level and starts sending, BTC dominance will be in effect. So alts will have a sell-off in the short term. And that's just opportunities, because it's kind of my favorite period. BTC is showing a lot of strength. You get that confirmation. You get people piling back into Moonshot and Robinhood because of headlines. And while that's happening, all your favorite altcoins are down. And generally it's opportunity because, like I said, with like retail coming back in, non-crypto native retail, going for the generic exchanges, they're going to start piling into things they remember being good before, like your Popcats and your fart coins and whatnot. So it just gives opportunity for you to sort of front run them, like the anticipation they come back and start loading up on these things. We just look at something like Pepe, for instance. Like if BTC starts really moving up, Pepe's had a very nice move. It's coming back to test support right now. This has a long way to go up. I'm not saying things make new all-time highs. There's a lot of dispersion in the market now. But the select ones you think will be strong runners, they have very much potential to make all-time high. Like Hype made one yesterday. Farcoin will definitely, well, I wouldn't say definitely, but Farcoin is a very high chance to make all-time high if BTC starts getting up to those levels. And yeah, so that's kind of my thing I'll be doing is if BTC shows that strength, I'll be looking at these alts that have been historically strong, that have had mind share. And I'll be looking to scale into those. And that's
you touched on a good point about dispersion. Like definitely, like what people have to realize is that there are so many more alts now, and there are new things that are launching that'll capture attention. So if the market does have a big rally, there'll likely be a new meme based on a new hot topic, which sucks liquidity out of old memes. So like all-time highs are pretty much a stupid assumption for the majority of coins, just because of the amount of dispersion. But what we will see is across the strong stuff that has a lot of mind share, a lot of attention, and is quality in its fundamentals. That stuff will still perform, maybe not hit all-time highs, but perform well. And then you'll have a select few altcoins which do end up running to new highs. And then on the other side of the coin, you'll have brand new tokens which also pull huge multiples. And often the new shiny objects are what run the hardest. I mean, Fartcoin is relatively new in the scheme of things. It's running really hard. SPX is relatively new in the scheme of things. It's running really hard. Syrup, they did a rebrand, so I guess it's new in the scheme of things, running really hard. Hyperliquid, new, same thing. So like what you'll notice is that it's actually not a lot of the last cycle coins, which are pulling huge multiples. It's the new stuff. So you kind of have to shift your thinking a little bit into like, maybe I'm not going to hold a portfolio of 20 old coins. Maybe I'll altcoins, not altcoins, OLD. Kind of sounds similar with my accent. But instead, I'll maybe keep a bit more liquidity. And if there's a new narrative that crops up, I'm happy to position that. Have some sort of invalidation because I understand there's not as much price history on the lower time frames, but try and ride that new trend and get into them when they come. And that's the most exciting thing, is what I would kind of call myself a narrative trader to an extent, a fundamental narrative trader, because that's where you get really outsized opportunities to make money in the market.
Yeah. 100%. I think my plan at the moment is I've just got the mindshare hot list. What we were speaking about before, things not making all-time high, like PopCat ain't going back to all-time high. I can say that with a lot of confidence. I don't think WIF is going to make new all-time high. It's not even on my watch list anymore. I just don't think it's happening. So these are not the things I'll be piling into. Yes,
although
they can go
Ansem's
up.
still shilling it. I don't know why or how, but he is.
Well, it doesn't seem to be having much effect.
No, I'm talking about WIF.
Oh, WIF, right.
Yeah. But still, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see this going back up there. So these, yes, it will go up. Yes, it will make you money. But these are the things, like, think about all the bag holders here. Think about all the, like, upside resistance you got to face, overhead liquidity. People that were buying in here and holding spot, they're going to sell for break even as things get up to these levels. So got to keep that in effect. Then you look at something like Syrup. It's just been up only.
Been crazy.
With something like Hype, yes, they can have pullbacks into big zones, which is what we want if we want to load up on things.
It just never. No, everyone wants it. I've got an opinion on Hype.
There's no overhead supply is what you want.
I think it'll keep going up. Look, I see a world where Hype is at $80 to $90, but I will say this: I would not be buying right this second. And to be honest, if you only found out about it a month ago, obviously I've been speaking about it since $8, but I know I did a recent video at like 35, so it's still up since then. But even at the time, there was only really one chance to fill, like a few days later. Apart from that, there hasn't been many places to enter. I would either just trade it or wait for some big FUD event, which is probably going to happen at some point. Bybit's launching their new DEX. I know Binance is as well. People think momentum on coins goes forever. There will be a period where this is not liked. And it could happen in the next 6 months, and that like it did when the hack happened earlier in the year, and that'll be your chance to position. So I probably wouldn't FOMO in here. I know everyone's bullish, but that's not a reason to buy into highs, in my opinion. Like I'm not comfortable buying into highs after highs after highs in terms of long-term spot. Different for traders.
No, I agree. And like the glaring thing in the room, the elephant in the room for a while, it's this 3-day divergence potentially locking in. Well, it has just locked in. 3-day bearish div, also a daily div on RSI. Ignore my indicator here. But, it's diverging on awesome oscillator, it's diverging on RSI. Got some friends that are in very big positions that started scaling up because of that. Not just because of that, because, it's also quite extended with like zero pullback so far. But something to have in mind. And when you think your favorite coin won't have a pullback, eventually it does. And there might be a period where this just falls out of the spotlight, something else takes over and everyone forgets about Hype. It has a really nice pullback. I'm looking for something like this. I think we discussed it last stream. This $30 to $29 region, big gap fill down here into the low volume node. Take out this key low here to get there. If we get back there, that's where I'll be bidding. But, if it falls out of the spotlight and things take over, this is completely within the realms of possibility. And also what you said about some sort of FUD event, it's, we don't think it'll happen, like things like even though the writing was kind of on the wall with that. It was just going up only. Everyone wanted a piece. No one could get a piece. And eventually it just pretty much rugged to zero. So, worth framing things like that. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I wouldn't be buying things here, especially not with those momentum.
Well, so it's what's the valuation? Like to be clear, I'm still bullish. But I'm, maybe I'm slightly biased because I bought in quite low. I know I covered it again in the 30s, but, and I still think it can go higher, $70, $80, right? But, what you do have to accept is it's at a $42 billion FDV. Yes, it can go to 80, 90. And I think, honestly, on the current trajectory, it definitely can. But just because it can doesn't mean you should ape into highs. There still needs to be risk management there. And you still need to look at buying into dips, in my opinion. That's basically, 42 bill. Like what I'm trying to say, I'll summarize it. The higher a coin goes, the worse the risk reward, right? At $8, best coin in the world, great risk reward. At $15, great, slightly worse. 25, great, slightly worse. 35, great, slightly worse. 45, good. 50, And 70, you know, so like there's a classic saying, and I'm going to butcher it. I believe it's by Howard Marks. It's like there are good assets at bad prices, and there are bad assets at good prices. So hyperliquid, fundamentally amazing, right? But there can be and I'm not saying it's there yet, because I still think it has upside, but eventually there'll come a point where hyperliquid is a good asset at a bad price. And there's other coins in the market which are trash, vaporware memes, right? Rubbish. But they might be very good longs. They're bad assets, but they're at good prices. So you have to make the distinction between fundamentals and price, because prices is its own thing. That's speculation. It's hype. It's narrative. It's momentum. It's completely different from fundamentals. So, yeah, you can buy a very good asset at a very bad price, and you can do the opposite.
When I've said this before on Twitter, I didn't. I got a lot of hate, but I mistook calling Ava a bad asset, Ava AI, just because I got so many fanboys for it. It's effectively a vapor asset at a good price at the moment. My lines are gone.
Good segue.
I see. Effectively, this is what I'm watching for this, and like it looks like a nice buying opportunity. It's range form, had a deviation, reclaim. The retest is really nice. Effectively deviated the range lows again last night. And even on the pullback today, it barely budged. Like it's held its ground quite well. And we look at like where this is, it's basically the bottom of a big consolidation range. So the invalidation is quite simple on this. Yeah, it could be trading all the way under the deviation, but you could just say if it starts closing back under the range low and finding acceptance, you can invalidate quite quickly. I think for spot opportunities, stuff like this looks good. And especially if BTC, as we discussed before, starts going into price discovery, these are things you want to look at, because we know AVA has the run on it when it gets there. This was
what is this thing? I've never heard of this coin. I'm trying to look it up on Bybit. Ava AI.
Yeah, it's an agent. It's low cap. It pumps. Like when it rips, it really rips, and when it dumps, obviously the same, of course. But
I know it.
Yeah, I pointed this out on Twitter, and I got skewed by people because I used the hashtag. People were furious that I speak about this coin negatively.
30 million FTV. Yeah, I know it.
But like this is the kind of opportunity you want to look for, stuff that can do really well.
Is what it's called.
Oh yeah, it's Hollywood. That's right. Yeah. So PC goes as price discovery. This makes it a very attractive opportunity once it shows some strength. So this is actually buying very closely in validation. If this starts showing even a modicum of strength and reclaiming structural levels, let's just say this right here, it reclaims this daily structure while BTC's break out to new highs. This is where you can say, I'm going to buy in line with strength instead of trying to time the bottom. And this makes for an attractive asset. This is 70% to range EQ from the bottom. It's 140% to range high. And that's a conservative estimate. Like if we start really printing on things and agents have their time in the spotlight again, which they inevitably will, meme to AI rotation, this has, a decent way up. So there's sort of things I'm watching, but yeah, this effectively a bad asset at a good price if you want to frame it like that.
Yeah, I really like that saying. All right, I don't want this to go for too long, but there are some important things we haven't touched on. Ethereum, I think that is a very important chart to go over, because ETH BTC is still on the verge of its breakout, but ETH's also just ranging.
Yeah, that's literally just ranging, so it's pretty difficult. I think, honestly, it actually rejected off this breaker on a lower time frame I posted last night. We have a lot of stacked liquidity down here, all these untapped lows. I think, for me, this is like a don't diddle in the middle scenario. I don't want to trade it anywhere in here. I want to trade it if it breaks out with a bit of gusto, or I want to look for a sweep of all these lows down into here, some sort of deviation or just a retest. I think sweeping like at least some of these lows would be a good sign. I'd effectively maybe hazard along at this one, maybe this one. We might get front run on the bottom one. But I think this makes for a decent opportunity if it gets above or down to these levels. Not really anything to do right now. It's just chop city. And we actually marked this out as a range. It's like bang on the EQ as well.
Yeah. I'd love to see ETH BTC as well.
Yeah.
Because I feel like this is the more important chart, because this has been like a very key altcoin reversal indicator for a while. But it's a weird one right now where like it should be breaking out, but it almost looks like it's going to break down.
Yeah, well, that's structure. Yeah. That
we're all hoping for a breakout.
a diagonal breakout's now a horizontal breakout. This is a level we now need to watch.
Okay.
But
Because
it's just looking like ETH, right? Yeah. Just looking like ETH. Here's your range low. Here's your high. There's your EQ.
ETH just looking like ETH. What's changed?
Yeah, and we did sweep that key high before rejecting, which is not a great sign. So it's obviously hunting downside liquidity. Hasn't really taken any yet. Got a bunch of equal lows down here. This just sort of furthers my case for hunting downside in this, because you look at all these stacked lows. It's just the same as the ETH chart.
So if it does hunt downside, do you think that's because Bitcoin rips and ETH doesn't follow as hard, or do you think it's because the market dumps and ETH just doesn't hold up steam because people will short it and keep their Bitcoin longs, or Bitcoin just has better relative strength?
Yeah, look, if Bitcoin goes into price discovery and dominance is there, and obviously ETH will sell off a bit, because all alts will sell off a bit. But I don't know. I just think ETH is famous at doing the fake out and then just sort of ruining people's lives. So I think it's taking the upside liquidity. It needs to sweep some to the downside before hunting upside. But it's just range bound at the moment. These are not assets I ever trade. Any altcoin I find like this, I don't touch it till I see liquidity swept either side. And obviously, this is a high time frame chart. I trade lower, but ranges within ranges. And if we just mark this as a range low right now, and this is a range high, we are
just don't get chopped up in a range. Everyone is getting so chopped up right now. I'm seeing it not necessarily in a bad way, just like confused. Right, every day. I have people in my Discord like, oh, do I need to position? We're pumping again, and then the next day, like, oh, should I be de-risking? And it's just like this constant flip-flopping. I mean, this show is great because you can go into your own charts, set your levels, and understand like these are the zones that we need to definitively clear to have some sort of directional bias. And until then, we're largely just range bound on a lot of assets: ETH, BTC, certain alts.
There's two reasons for that. First up, people think crypto is a 24/7 market, which equals 24/7 opportunity, which means you should be in a position at all times, 24/7, which is the worst way you can frame it. The second thing is people are always on low time frames too much. Also, when you see like your watch list and you're looking at the percentages and you see it light up all green, it's just like a casino. Like, casinos flash bright lights to entice you to gamble. Same thing with this. So, get a grayscale mode on your computer so everything just comes up gray and it just sort of stops your bias flip-flopping and your endorphins firing. But when they see things are up 10% or whatever, they're like, all right, we're pumping now. And they're just paying too much attention to micro rotations. You can just look at general strength across the market or look at something like a spaghetti chart. Magic's pumping for no good reason. If you can see things are largely range bound, I just have to get rid of this for a sec. See things are just largely ranging sideways, you're not missing much. But the way I do things, like just say I wanted to trade Ethereum on the daily time frame and nothing else, if I just had it in my head that I'm only doing that, then I would just be setting alerts on the range high and the range low, and I would literally not pull this chart up again until those alerts fired. And that's how the basis of my trading is. Like I set alerts and everything exactly where I want to do business. If they don't fire, I don't look at the chart ever again, and that gives me freedom in my day, gives me more focused direction on things instead of just flicking back and forth between stuff. So I think the alerts thing is pretty much why I'd suggest anyone upgrades to TradingView Premium, just to then get more alerts, because it will save you so much time and it will save you from flip-flopping in your own bias. Because you might see things pumping in the middle of a range and just start aping long and stuff, only for it to continue chopping and chop you out of your position. So even look at something like this on the 15-minute. Yeah, there's opportunities, but like it's you have to be quite dialed in and switched onto it. And people along here targeting the highs, it gets swept, takes them down, stops them out. Oh, sorry, targeting these highs I meant. I would just advocate for when we're close to like range high and stuff, just zooming out of it and actually seeing where you are, as opposed to being on the 15-minute, the 5-minute, whatever.
You got to use them all in confluence with each other. I think, to wrap up the video here, let's do rapid fire on some alts, because I know there are a couple setups you were targeting. Because even though we're indecisive in terms of high time frame breakouts, what you can do, and especially for the traders that are watching this, I assume there's a fair few of you, you could still pick off opportunities, and there still are lower time frame trading opportunities on alts if you want to use smaller size and keep yourself busy. You don't need to, I don't think now's the time for big material risk, but it can always be the time for a bit of gambling if you are if you are prone to it.
Yeah, definitely.
Even I'm doing some stuff right now, right? It's just sized in such a way that it doesn't really affect, like it might be 5 to 10% of my portfolio I'm just playing around with just to keep myself entertained, but nothing crazily exposed.
Yeah, and keep sharp, yeah.
Yeah, keep sharp. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important. So I basically always have my watch list split into like my general watch list, and I've got like things I think look good, and then I pull those at will into two other sections, which is intraday and high time frame trend. High time frame trend right now, like looking at SUI, this is potentially a short for me. Now we've closed back inside the old range. I've also got the daily noodle there, so I've got alerts set up here, and instead of pushing to that, might look for a short down into this weekly range low and this weekly demand. Arbo is another one just looking for a pullback into daily trend, but now we're sort of back inside the range. I'm not that interested. And then I'm just looking for things that have mindshare at the moment on intraday. So syrup, obviously looking for a pullback into this breakout level.
I do think this will pull back at some point. I mean, it's a very good coin. I've spoken about it, and we got a nice initial entry. Didn't get my full size, but yeah, I think this will pull back at some point. It's been on a big run. Needs to cool down at some point.
No, it looks really good. Effectively for an intraday play. So, I'm not in the 1 hour or the 4 hour just looking for high time frame swings. You've got to dial down the time frames for this. But, a pullback into the demand down here we have in the 1 hour. It's also like a high time frame SR level. Maker's been really strong. So actually something I drew out this morning. We basically flipped above this high time frame resistance. We've puked below deviation. Now I'm looking for some sort of pullback into that level to confirm it as like a higher low. Potentially an intraday long opportunity there. I won't go over all of these, but hype was something I was interested in this morning, but I noticed we were trading up to the old range high. So this effectively now, if we reject here, which it looks like we are, this could effectively be a deviation, and maybe we come down and test more of this demand level, this 0.62 level. So something I'm watching, once again, just setting alerts and everything. JTO has been really strong. I don't have haven't done any analysis on it yet. I just threw it in as we were streaming.
Yeah, just I guess Solana proxy, Solana staking narrative.
Exactly.
Head of the ETF.
SPX, Murad will hate this one, but effectively, big deviation of the lows, coming back up, effectively deviated the range high again, just swept it a bunch of times, can't get above it. And the next thing I'm looking for is a pullback, maybe into like 1.18, give or take.
I would load up. I would load up spot here. I think this. I struggle to bet against a guy like Murad, who's dedicated. Imagine dedicating your whole life mission, having tens of millions of dollars. I mean, clearly his public wallet's 50 mil, but he probably has 100, right? I know it's not a liquid, so keep that in mind. But like maybe he's like 30 mil liquid. Who knows? But whatever the point is, imagine fading a guy that's dedicated his whole life to shilling a coin. I don't know if I want to be on the other side of that. I'm going to be on the right side. I just want to wait for some of the gamblers to offload, and then I'll get in again. I mean, I bought at 50 cents. I've still been holding since then, but yeah,
it's a good entry. Can you imagine if BTC goes into price discovery and all the news headlines hit and the retail of
his TikTok will just back explode. Yeah,
exactly.
I think it'll do well, bro. I just want to give me a pullback, give me $1. Let me load up again with the same size I loaded at 60, double my bag, and then let's run it to like $3.
I don't know if we get it, but like the daily noodle's down there too. But I don't know if we get it because I think
fuck.
A lot of people will want to bid.
We just got demonetized. Fuck. It's all right. YouTube doesn't pay the bills. Mars High Club does, though. Link in the description. No, I'm kidding. But YouTube really doesn't pay the monetize. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it depends, right?
It's fun building a brand, though. Yeah.
It's we don't do it for the ad rev.
Yeah. What was this looking at? So
Pepe monetize. We should.
Pepe was looking decent. Well, it actually looks weak as hell, but it looks decent just from the perspective of like SR flip retest right now. Just want to see some strength there. This is not something I ever just bid. I don't see it as support and go right. I'm bidding it. Maybe I'll look like lower time frame on like order flow and stuff on it, but generally I want to see some sort of strength shown. So potentially I want to see some sort of structure flipped, like maybe we come and clear this high, get above that, and that's like your long opportunity. But sort of have it in there anyway. Aero has some thing going on with Coinbase. I think they're getting listed or they've got some integration. So narrative trade. The kind of way
it's the top leading base proxy, and base is really hot right now, so it makes sense.
Exactly. That's right. The way I kind of do things myself is like I have spot from lower or levels lower that I'm looking to accumulate spot. I then have I have capital set aside for that. Then I have capital set aside, like a smaller amount for narrative trades on swings. So that'd be something like Aero, like if I'd caught it at the bottom, or if it pushes up and gets some sort of nice retest, reclaim levels, potentially that. And then I have a not very small, but like a smaller part of my portfolio for intraday opportunities. So that's just like looking at spaghetti chart, looking at what sectors are hot, going to Orion terminal, looking for things like, outlier or open interest. And that's like, maybe 10% of my portfolio, I use that to trade intraday. And that's kind of like just paying the bills out of trading. And then the rest of it's sort of, for bigger investment thesis or swing opportunities. So something like this for a narrative trade, this would be something I was looking to scale into, depending on how long it can go for. I need to look more into that Coinbase stuff. CRV, I think it actually looks quite weak. But if this deviates and reclaims this level, there's potentially a trade there. Fartcoin, had a nice bounce, but obviously it's just doing that sort of complacency shoulder. This is just a big range. It's back at the 0.62 level, daily demand here. I think we could probably maybe run more into this again. Just don't want to see the range low lost. As long as we hold that, this is good. But I actually think Fartcoin will be range bound for a while. I just get that feeling. We'll see though. And Cookie, I don't actually have much conviction in this because it lost it. But last night, I posted something in the group which is like, this was a deviation. Pushed back inside quite nicely. We broke market structure in the 4 hour. Then we're just looking for this support level to hold, which it did not. It's now sinking back under it. So, this is just a reflection of the greater weakness in the market at the current time with the headlines flying around. But we start getting back above that, it could make a nice trade as well. Very clear equal highs target up here that we can have a look at. So that's pretty much it for swings and intraday. I suppose Kaito was the last thing I was looking at. Kaito had a hell of a run up, very strong. Now we're just consolidating down in this daily demand level after losing this structural low. But if we start marking up and getting back above this level, so it would look something like, that acceptance back up there, this would be a big deviation. I'd probably look to long this up here, maybe targeting the highs or scale out along the way. And that's it from me.
Yeah, that's a few setups for people to keep their eye on. Obviously, all of this will play out in the Discord. You'll have a slower week as we discussed, but
it all hangs on this right now.
Yeah,
unfortunately, it's just the way it is.
So you said you were going to take a few days break. What happens if we start breaking? Do you just go back? I guess you just go back to the markets.
I'll have alerts set on specific criteria, but I've got spot on a bunch of stuff.
You'll be chilling by the pool on your phone. Stuff.
Man, I can't trade on my phone. I'm so bad at it. I have a real problem with. Well, obviously, when you're on your phone, this is what you see. This is your window.
Yeah, true.
And you kind of lose scope unless you constantly zoom out of what's happening all over here.
Yeah, it's if you go on horizontal, I guess.
Yeah, you can do that. But if you're trading intraday and you're just doing local levels, like a local range, maybe this is a low, this is a high, that's fine. But if you're trying to take high time frame opportunities or do analysis on where you want to buy spot, and that's a bit difficult. So I also trade off a terminal, so I need
general stuff. If you have a list of coins you want to research or look into some news or even just spot outliers, you could still do spaghetti and Apple Notes or ChatGPT put down totally. Some of your observations. But then I agree with you. I still think going back to the desk or the laptop to action and scope out real material plans is the best thing to do. But I use my phone a lot just for general research and bookmarks and stuff like that.
Oh, so do I. And I look at charts all the time, and I just don't execute in there because I execute off a terminal. Yeah. And once you trade it on a terminal, it's really hard to go back to just doing it off your phone or on the exchange.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
cool.
Yeah, so I will be away for about a week, but obviously we start breaking out heavily, then I'll have to come back and see what I can do.
I'm not going away. I'll be here for you guys. So, yeah. All right, bro. Fair bits for people to digest. So let's let them do that. And see you in Discord. See you on the charts.
Yep.
And yeah.
Good stuff. I'll see you in a week or so other.
Yeah. See you next week. Peace.
Peace.